Let's go. We're going to be watching this video by Dr. Mike. Seems like a pretty chill dude. Interesting fellow. I think he does a lot of, like, kind of maybe what you call popular medical type analysis or whatever. Like, kind of TikTok type things, analyzing that type of stuff. And I guess in this case, talking to a dude, Dr. Paul Offit, about vaccines. So, to clarify my own position on this, I would tend to be like a medical minimalist. Like, obviously, don't be an idiot. If you need something done, go to the doctors, have it done. But don't put crap in your body if you don't have to. I feel like even for doctors, it's probably pretty hard to quantify, like, what effects like an artificial chemical or biological agent will have on the afterlife of the person who they're giving it to, how it will mix with all of the stuff going on. So, anyways, here we go.
Did you ever play poker in your life?
A lot as a teenager.
Really?
16, 17.
So during the first part here, they're talking about, what is it? Genetic engineering, CRISPR's vaccine advisory committee. So you can
18, 18, I played
go
poker.
look that up yourself.
So did you get comfortable with the notion of doing the best with the limited information that you had at the time, and then making your move and being okay with the consequences because you did the best with the limited number of information pieces you had?
Yes, and I wish everybody who was on these committees also played poker as a child.
Isn't it ironic that it's so
I was looking at it. These are really interesting looking photos they got going on here. They seem like almost archaic. It's kind of pretty cool.
so
Anyways.
replicatable, the theory of poker into real life, especially healthcare?
Also, I grew up in Baltimore. I spent my life at the track, just so we're clear.
Okay,
even early college,
that's less.
life at the track. I mean,
Betting on horses seems dumber in my mind, for the record.
so Bowie, Laurel, Pimlico.
Technically, I think most of it's dumb. Well, it's one of those things where, like, okay, you're betting on a thing, you win, someone has to lose, and there's no really commensurate value going on there beyond maybe like a thrill of the, the experience. Like, it's not like the other person gets something if they lose. So I don't like the whole concept in general. But
I spent
it's like that tends to be how gambling works.
my life at the track. But make your bet. Make your bet. Be willing to make your bet, realizing you may have to tear up your ticket at the end of the race. And there's something to be said for that personality, if you will, to realize that because you are making a bet. I mean, doing nothing is also making a bet.
Correct.
Is that wrong? Inaction is also a risk.
Doing nothing is doing something.
Yeah, and when we think about some of these procedures and treatments that we have available to us these days that are fairly commonplace, blood transfusions, chemotherapy, what was the process? What bet was being made by
Skip ahead
researchers
a
that
little
they
bit here.
And look at the early transplant early on, and even that was in their early stages. Thing is also a choice, and for someone who has cancer or some groups, the vaccines are different because vaccines generally are given to healthy
Here
people.
we go.
So there, the bar is much higher.
Yeah. So how do you, as an infectious disease specialist, speak to someone who is vaccine hesitant?
I thought that was a nice way of saying it. Vaccine hesitant. And I'm not being sarcastic there. I think it's maybe a nicer way to characterize it than it kind of this like anti-vaxxers, kind of presents this concept of these tinfoil hat wearing people with a bomb shelter in their backyard. So.
Right. So I would say they fall into two groups.
Well, and the people. Here's the thing. Like, there's kind of. I had looked this up. You have the idea of mRNA vaccines. So there's a medical news today thing. In my mind, like, the idea of a traditional vaccine is very intuitive, right? You give people a variation, a diluted version of the virus, trains their body how to recognize the virus. Profiling, for the record, prejudice, racism, no. But it trains their body how to, fight against it, to recognize the disease when it actually happens, hopefully, and to be able to fight it off. mRNA, like, this right here is like mRNA vaccine tells the body how to make a protein that produces immunity against specific microbes. It feels more abstract, and I would probably have to have it explained in a more holistic manner. But it's not as it doesn't feel as straightforward as like what we consider a traditional vaccine to be, right? Yeah, you can look that up on your own if you want.
The one group are people who
Well, continue on for that. Like the problems I had heard people talk about when we were actually having COVID. Wow, when we were having COVID, is that like this vaccine? It's not a vaccine in traditional sense. It's a symptom suppressant, which I guess is maybe part of what was causing people to die from COVID. It was a whole bunch of stuff hitting your body at one time. So suppressing the symptoms can be a good thing. But it feels like almost a misnomer to call it a vaccine, in that our traditional idea of vaccines is that they stop you from getting the disease, not that they keep you from feeling certain symptoms as acutely. Like it feels like you're more giving them some sort of pain repressor or something.
really want to know whether or not there's a problem. They smelled the smoke. They want to know whether there's any fire there. You try and find out what it is that they're worried about. Is it that they've seen on that Joseph Ladapo, for example, who's the Florida State Surgeon General, has said that that the vaccines are contaminated with DNA, and that's going to insert itself into your DNA and cause cancer or autoimmune disease. See, you can answer those questions if they have a specific question, but you have to find out what it is that they're worried about. Sometimes it's just free floating, but they need to be reassured. They smell the smoke. Is there fire there?
How do they decide in that scenario? Like, let's say I'm a person that comes in asking that question, and you say, well, Florida Surgeon General said this, but I'm saying this. How are they supposed to judge which doctor is telling them the right thing?
See, this is the biggest problem with this.
I have a paradox of professionalism in this situation. Two experts both saying the opposite thing.
Well, I mean, so we're living in a misinformation, disinformation age, right? And
this is actually a thing I was thinking about the other. There was a metaphor I thought of for this thing, and if you ever gotten into the Lord of the Rings books, I didn't read them. I listened to them. I don't know if I had the patience to actually read them in their entirety, but yeah, I think I've listened to them maybe at least twice by now. But if you've gotten into the books, you would know that Denethor was using the Palantir. That's what drove him insane and made him want to kill himself and Faramir, I think. He was using the Palantir, which is this device that allows you to see great distances. But also, Sauron was kind of tainting the vision that he had, creating a kind of a false perspective. Like it was truth that he was feeding him, but it was selective truth. And there's kind of a haunting parallel with regards to the internet we have today. We can see a lot of stuff from all around the world, all this news and whatnot. Probably a good bit of it, at least, is true. Some of it's false, almost certainly. But also the algorithms that govern, especially on YouTube or Twitter or whatever, the algorithms that govern like what you see, what is popular, are feeding you a certain type of information that it selects for controversy, for sensationalism. So it feels like it's feeding you a tainted version of reality, and it's an unsettling concept, honestly. So, go touch grass.
it doesn't bother me so much when Marjorie Taylor Greene says that mRNA vaccines cause cancer, or it doesn't bother me when RFK Jr. says that that vaccines are causing all these chronic diseases. What bothers me is that when Joseph Ladapo, who's an MD, PhD from Harvard, gets up there and says that he's the Florida State Surgeon General and sends out a missive, a letter to every healthcare worker in Florida.
He said missive. Dinosaur. For the record, I actually like I like using archaic language. They had nicer words back then sometimes.
Don't give these mRNA vaccines for that reason. I mean, it's MD, PhD from Harvard. I mean, it's a good school. It's not Penn, but it's a good school. And, so how do you fight that? It's this enemy, I've seen the enemy, Pogo, right? I've seen the enemy and they are us. So I think that's what this is. And Robert Malone, who says the same thing. I mean, he did seminal work on mRNA vaccines. He could have been up for the Nobel Prize, and he says it in front of Congress. So that's
what is that
the
person
fight.
supposed to do?
Yeah, what is so? How do you? I think
Like, I'm a mother of three. I'm listening to Surgeon General on one side, Dr. Paul Offit on the other side. I'm like, both are very passionate. Both are distinguished. Both went to great schools. Do I just go with my gut?
So I think that this is a good question. The this I had to be on CNN about this issue. It was Brianna Keel, I remember. It's a CNN, and so for me, it was about trying to explain why it wasn't possible. Not only that it didn't, because when you say that it didn't, and all the evidence is that there was no increased cancer in those who got the vaccine who didn't, what you're saying is trust me. I think what you have to be able to do is to say, here's why it doesn't make sense. Okay, first of all, these fragments of DNA.
I think that's an important part of persuasion. Like, make it make sense to the person you're talking to. Like, try to get them to see it from your perspective. There's no real substitute for that. You can cite statistics or probabilities or possibilities all you want, but it feels like human brains tend to maybe operate more on like understanding how a thing works actually. So it's one of the things that you almost have to make it make sense. It might actually stop there. There was one other thing I wanted to mention. They were talking about earlier in here. They were talking about the whole thing of like gambling, and this is a thing I feel like it's been a real issue among medical people, at least the people who are the faces of these medical endeavors, is that they act maybe more certain than they have any right to be. And I think the short-term goal is we need to make people feel safe and produce stability and keep everyone calm. In my mind, it's a short-term gain, long-term loss, because it feels like you can do that, and yes, people are very docile then because you've reassured them. But like it feels like in the long term, the fact that you were acting more certain about a thing than you would any right to be, it feels like it dilutes the reputation of the scientific community or medical community in the long term. So I don't really like it. Anyways, yeah, you can go check this video out. Yeah, goodness, where was it? Yeah, asking the uncomfortable questions about vaccines. Dr. Paul Offit. All right. Thanks for watching. If you like the video, please press the like button, subscribe, and leave a comment if you want to.